We continue now at the top of Daf Kuf Gimel Amid Beis in Meseches Bava Basra. This is Bava Basra Daf 103b. On the previous summit, the Gemara brought the Mishnah which said that if you have rocks or ditches in a field and they're less than 10 tefachim, they're still measured along with the field. They're included in the field in terms of the amount of property that the seller has to give the buyer. Those pieces of land, meaning again the rocks or the ditches, would be included because they're less than 10 tefachim. But the Gemara says, what if they're in a formation which makes it difficult to plow that area of the land, makes it difficult to work that area of the land? And the Gemara gives different possible formations. The Gemara says kishir mahu. Let's say it's kishir, which means that it's like a ring, like this diagram, or kishura mauer, let's say it's like a row, again, that can prevent the plowing in that area, or itzdanin mahu, or let's say it's like the horns of an ox, that's this diagram over here. If it's in this formation, again, that could prevent the buyer from being able to plow or work the land properly. So again, it's the dinin mahu. And derech hakoloson mahu, let's say it's crooked, as in this diagram. That's how the rocks or the ditches are formed. Again, all of these questions, are those included within the sale, or does the seller have to give other property to make up for that property? Again, the Gemara says, ma, what's the halach? And the Gemara says, take what the Gemara leaves these as a question. And the Gemara continues, Tana was taught him, hayasela yechidi, if it's a lone rock, afilu kolshu, even if it's the smallest amount, ein nimdad ima, that is not measured, it's not included together with the field. And the Rashbam explains, Tana was taught him, hayasela yechidi, if it's a lone rock, amas nisan kaima braisa, the katani pachos mikan nimdad ima. Again, we're going on the part of the Mishnah which said that if it's less than 10 tefachim, then it's included, it's measured with the field. The katani alon, so the braisa is saying on that, shem hayasela yechidi, let's say it's a lone rock, chutz min hasada. Now the case over here is that it's outside of the field, samach lasad, it's near the field, ubala hamocher lahaschil limdod misham, and the seller wants to begin the measurement from there. Afilu we have ahu sela kolshu, even if it's a tiny rock, to have a namach miyud tvachim, harbe, it's much less than 10 tvachim, the katzer me'arba tvachim, it's less than 4 tvachim. Afilu achi, nevertheless, ein nimdad and ima, it is not measured together with the field. The lo batal legabe sada, because it's not considered nullified in terms of the field, relative to the field. Elaheicha dechi muvla besoch hasada, unless it's actually fully within the boundaries of the field. Avol keshu chutz min hasada, but let's say it's outside of the field, lo batal legabe sada, so then it's independent, it's not considered to be absorbed within the field. Velomi boy have a yechidi mamish, and we don't have to say it in the case where it's actually a lone rock. Ela afilu we have a besoch hasada, ela shesamach lemeitzer afilu kolshu, let's say it's in the field, but it's close to the boundary line of the field, even a little bit in the boundary line, ein nimdad ima, it is not going to be measured together with the field. Ela hechad to have a muvla be'emtza sad, it has to be fully within the field itself. Only there, if it's muvla be'emtza sadahu de mikra shidrei de'ara, then it's considered the spine of the land, uvetalian, and can be included. The point is, if you have any of this kind of a rock that is not fully within the boundaries of the field itself, then it actually is not batal to the field. Kain nira be'enai ve'ikr, the Rashbam says this is his preferred explanation. And the Gemara continues along these lines, Vim hayasamach lemeitzer, if it's near the boundary line. Again, in those times, the fields had boundary lines where the earth was either raised a little or it was a little lower. So again, if it's not fully within the field, it's near the boundary line, afilu kolshu, even any amount within that boundary line, ein nimdad ima, it's not measured together with the field, as the Rashbam explained. And the Gemara continues, Boy Rav Papa asks the following question, Mufsuk offer bein time, let's say there's a little dirt between the rock and the boundary, so ma, what would be the halacha in that situation? And the Rashbam explains, Mufsuk offer kolshu bein time kagon pachas migimla, means it's a very small amount of earth that's between the rock and the boundary line, less than 3 tvachim. Bein hahu sela katan lemeitzer, again between that small rock and the boundary line. Michashvinan leika samach lemeitzer, if it's so close to the meitzer, is that already considered too close to the meitzer, or low or not? Via nimdadima, if it's not considered too close, then it would be measured together with the field. And the Gemara says, Teiku, the Gemara leaves that as a question as well. And the Gemara continues by Ravashi. Ravashi asks, offer milmata, let's say there's dirt below, v'tsunma lemala, and there's rock above, or the reverse, offer milmala, there's dirt above, v'tsunma milmata, and there's rock below. Mahu, what would be the halacha in that case? And the Gemara says teiku. The Gemara leaves that as a question for this as well. And the Rashbam explains, Boy Ravashi asks him, Tim Salomar hefsek offer bein time, if you say that the dirt between it is considered a hefsek, have a hefsek, it is considered a separation from the boundary line. Avalim yesh hefsek offer milmata voset sun milamalo samach lemeitzer. Let's say you have some dirt below and then the rock is above, near the meitzar. Inami or ipcha, let's say the reverse, offer ma'at milmala, maybe there's a little dirt above, velo gavoa gimel ba'omek hamachresha, but it's not really 3 deep in terms of enough size for the actual plow. Vitsunma milmala, lamata, but there's rak below. These types of situations are situations where you could actually work the land, it's just a little difficult. So miyaz linan basar afar vinim daden. Do we say, well, you have dirt over there, and therefore that counts, it should be included? Oh, Dilmar, maybe it's some mik, or maybe the rak is the main thing, ve'inim daden, and it's not measured. And again, the Gemara said take to this question as well. And the Gemara continues with the Mishnah, Beis kor afar ani mocher loch mida bechevel. Let's say the way it's phrased is, the seller says to the buyer, I'm selling you a base core of earth, and it's mida bechevel, it's measured by a rope. That indicates that he's selling that exact amount. So then the Mishnah says, piches kolshu, if it's any less than that, even by the smallest amount, yenaches, so then he has to deduct. Hoser kolshu, if it's any extra, yachzir, that needs to be returned. Ve'imamar hein chaser hein yaser. Now if he says it might be missing a little, it might be a little extra, so then already there is some room. The amount of land doesn't have to be exact. Afilo piches rova l'sa, even if it's less, 1/4 of a kav per every saw of land. A hoser rova l'sa, let's say it's a little extra, 1/4 of a kav for every saw of land. Higio, that is still going to be a good sale. And the Mishnah continues, Yoser Mikan. Now let's say it's less by more than a rova l'sa, or let's say it's more by more than a rova l'sa. So then already that's too much. Yasa cheshbon. So then you have to make a calculation. You have to return whatever's extra. And the Mishnah says, Mahu machzir lo. So what does the buyer? Let's say the buyer gets extra. What does he return back to the seller? Mos. He returns money back to the seller, because to give such a small amount of land back to the seller is basically worthless. However, vimratza. If the seller wants the land back, machzir lo karka. So then the buyer does return the land to the seller. Veloma amru machzir lo mos. And why do they say that he returns money and not land if that's what the seller prefers? It's again, as we said, liyafos kocha shel mocher. It's in order to give an added strength to the seller side. Again, we don't want the seller to have to get back such a small piece of land that it's basically worthless. So that's why we say that if the seller prefers, he can have money back instead of land. And the Mishnah continues and elaborates. Shimshayir besada base tisha kav. And let's say that what was remaining by a field was an amount of 9 kav, uvegina base chatzi kav, or in a garden a half a kav, uchedir Rabbi Kiva base rova, or according to Rabbi Kiva, 1/4 of a kav. The point over here in the Mishnah is that these are all significant amounts of land that would be returned. So then already in these cases, machzir lo asakarka, then he does return the land, because that's significant enough that it wouldn't be considered to be a loss to the seller. And the Mishnah finally says, V'loes harova bilvad hu machzir. He doesn't just return that 1/4 kav extra. Elas kol hamoser. He returns everything that's extra. The Gemara is going to clarify what this really means to say is it should really be V'loes hamoser bilvad. Not only what was beyond the rova does he return, but once already there was extra, let's say the seller gave the buyer too much, and it was even more than a rova extra, you don't just return what was beyond the rova, you return the entire amount that was extra as well. And the Gemara says, they had the following question, base core stama mai. Let's say what was sold was a base core, and he doesn't say hein chaser, hein yaser, but he doesn't say mida bechevel either. He just says, I'm selling you a base core. What would be the halach in that case? The Gemara says, Tashma, come near proof from our Mishnah. Base core afar ani mocher lach mida bechevel. It says that if he's selling him and he uses the phrase mida bechevel, again, then we say it has to be exact, and we will continue with this discussion in the next video on Daf Kuf Dalid Amud Aleph.